Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Anglicans. I am your host, Ayanna James, and today we will be talking about Holy Trinity Cathedral in Port of Spain. The cathedral is going to celebrate its 198th birthday in May. As a diocese, we give thanks for those 198 years, especially the last 2 years or so, as the cathedral suffered some damage in the earthquake in 2018. She's still standing, and we pray that all goes well during the reconstruction process set to start this year. So joining me today is Kathryn McConnie, a hospitality and tourism educator with a specialty in tour guiding. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thanks, Ayanna. A pleasure to be here with you this afternoon.
So, Kathryn, I'm aware that you were running tour guides of the cathedral before COVID, yes? So if you could share with us how the idea of tours at the cathedral came about and how you became involved in that project.
Certainly. Back in 2000, I was approached by, at that time, Dr. Alan Patrick with regards to assisting with the restoration and maintenance of the cathedral and becoming a member of the cathedral's committee. And at that time, there was an effort to raise donations towards the restoration of the cathedral. And one of the ideas that came up was offering tours, especially as we had the cruise ships and so forth coming in. And so we developed a tour script, which was recorded. And at that time, you just had somebody with you that would take you around and the recording would play. That recording has since been updated. And now we physically do tours with guides. So far, I'm the one that's done most of them, particularly because I'm so versed in the information. But there's a lot of information that has been given to several of the other committee members, and they are supposed to as well do tours. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have no tours because of COVID, but hopefully through this interview, we'll get to learn the history of the cathedral. So Kathryn, the floor is yours. Go ahead and share with us the history of the cathedral.
Well, I'm really happy to share that history with you. And just to let you know, there is actually a virtual tour of Trinity Cathedral that was done by Round Trippin. And that kind of just highlights a few of the things in the cathedral. But it's still very important to have a tour guide with you because the history of the cathedral actually begins when it was the Holy Trinity back in 1801, when it was located at the corner of Prince and Frederick Street, just in that area. And then you had this disastrous fire in 1808. And many people don't even know that that was caused by a doctor who went to the outhouse with a candle and fell asleep. And he burnt down the whole of Port of Spain. And we lost the cathedral then in 1808, and it had to be rebuilt. Of course, some funds were granted to Port of Spain at the time for the rebuilding of the city, and Trinity Cathedral got some of that money, but they started building the cathedral inside of what we know today as Woodford Square. But the people of our country actually were very upset about that. It was in direct contravention of the laws of Trinidad, that you can't put it in the square. And it reached all the way up to almost the roof. And at that point, Sir Ralph Woodford came in and he said, okay, we're going to knock this down. And it was actually the parishioners that put together the money to be able to knock down the building and fix back the square. And Woodford then allocated the space where the cathedral is located today for the cathedral to be built, and also gave the money towards it. Now that there saw the start of the building in 1816, and then it was completed in 1823. Many people also don't know that even the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception was started at the same time in 1816, but that wasn't completed till 1832. And one would wonder, well, why did the Anglican Cathedral get completed first? It's so easy. We were British at the time, and the British, of course, being Protestant, would have obviously complete their cathedral first. So it was consecrated in 1823, and that beautiful wooden concrete structure you're seeing today was a little bit smaller than that at the time. In fact, the area where the choir presently sits and where the altar is didn't exist at that time. There was a big wall, and the seating was facing east and south, and the altar was actually in the center of the church. And the bishops, the governor's chair was located just above the northern door. Many people don't know that that actually existed at that time. And then eventually when they decided to expand the cathedral, that's when we got the lovely chapel at the side, and you have where the organ is located and the altar is today. Now, what's funny about that, and I'm yet to find it, is that when that was being done in 1859, they laid down under the foundation stone a time capsule. And in it, there's actually the newspaper article with regard to that chancel being set up, the sanctuary being set up. And I've not found it yet. I'm still looking for it, but it's supposed to be somewhere where that extension took place. Now,
just to clarify something, you spoke about the governor's chair. Is it that the governor had a specific place? He attended church and he had his own place in the church?
Certainly. Remember, we were British. So therefore, the British governor at the time being Sir Ralph Woodford, he himself would come to church, and he'd have all his officers and so forth, whether they were Anglican or Catholic, they had to come with him, and they were seated in the church. And at one time in the cathedral, the first 3 pews, you would see there's a Star of David at the end of the pew. And that actually is where the governors used to sit once the movement of the chairs and the expansion was done. And those pews were originally in the center of the church, just under where the governor used to sit. Now things moved around, and because we still remember Woodford is now on the southern wall, just above the southern door, seated in a lounge chair with a blanket over him, and he has a book in his hand. We always say we hope that's the Bible that he's reading in church, you know. So Woodford was very instrumental. And again, people are not even aware that he was instrumental in the cathedral churches, in the Catholic cathedral as well. And there is a statue of him in that cathedral too. Now, Trinity has so many different stories that go with it. I mean, obviously it was just the Holy Trinity Church, and it didn't become a cathedral until we placed the bishop's chair in it. And that happened when we actually consecrated Richard Rawle, the bishop at that time. He was the first to really be consecrated, and the first bishop of Trinidad. And with that, we saw it becoming the cathedral instead of the Holy Trinity Church. We have since, of course, consecrated several other bishops. You had people like Anstey, Chamberlain, and the first local bishop was Abdullah, Clive Abdullah, and we've had several after that. Trinity Cathedral also has been host to one of the most prestigious weddings in the British history back in the 1850s, when the governor at the time, he was Lord Harris, he fell in love with a young girl called Sarah Cummins, and she was the daughter of the archdeacon of the cathedral. And he married this lovely young girl. Unfortunately, she passed away 3 years into the marriage, and he grieved to death. But there is a plaque on the wall, which is on the northern wall of the cathedral, very close to where the pulpit is today. And that actually signifies, it's all about Sarah and the marriage, a great marriage that they had in the cathedral. Also in the cathedral, the ceiling is ranked the 7th best hammer beam ceilings in the world, in the whole world. So Trinity is on the world map with regards to church ceilings, which is so significant. We have other things, like, remember I was saying that the pews were facing east and south, and when eventually they all faced east, we have what we call the All Souls Chapel, which is on the western side, sitting under the old choir lofts. And that chapel, that little altar, is where the slaves used to worship. So there were some pine benches to the back that faced west, and they would worship at that altar. And they were there to take care of the children who were like the plantation owners' kids. If they were giving a little trouble, they then bring them to sit at the back of the church with them. So that's where the slaves actually worshipped. So that dates back again to the very early 1800s, when you consider that slavery was abolished in 1838. So Trinity is known for those things happening, and we welcomed everybody to this very day in the church. The clock in the tower. Well, today, we hear it chime every 15 minutes, and then on the hour, it sounds so beautiful. But would you believe when that clock was installed, that somebody had to go up the hundreds of steps going up into the tower, and wind that clock twice a week, physically. There are 3 keys that they'd have to turn. And those keys, at the end of the chain, there were different weights. And one weight was a ton, another was a half ton, another was a ton and a half. And you'd wonder how on earth they could turn these keys. But they'd have to do this. And so somebody was paid to do that, literally twice a week. And then all of a sudden, in the late 1800s, a gentleman called Bell Smythe, who was a member of the Legislative Council, he went before the council and said, listen, if you're paying, why are we paying for the winding of the Anglican Cathedral's clock and not for the Roman Catholic one? So they said, well, it's a public clock. Bell Smythe said, no. Only police stations are public clocks, not the cathedral. So they decided to stop paying for the winding of the clock, and that was in 1892. Well, you know, the people of Trinidad, we've always been a type of people that would protest, and we certainly did. So they decided to sign a petition, and they took it to the council. It was turned down. This was a petition to have somebody to let them pay for the rewinding of the clock, and of course, turned down. Eventually, there was a big meeting, and they sent a letter then to the Secretary of State, who was in England. And when that came back, they then decided, okay, they're going to pay for the winding. But for 2 years, the clock stopped. And voluntary, somebody would go up if they could manage or not. But then in 1894, they started paying for it, and they paid for it up until 2000. Since then, we now have an electric clock.
That was just the other day, kind of.
That's right. The gentleman at the time who used to go up, I remember him. It was either Joseph Alexander or Alexander Joseph. He used to climb those steps twice a week, and we couldn't get any young people to go up those steps to wind the clock, you know. But I do remember him. But they paid him to go up and down those steps. That's
Kathryn,
right.
I just wanted to ask something about what you spoke about earlier. In the cathedral, there are these plaques on the wall that tell somewhat of a story. What was the process in terms of being able to get a plaque on the wall in the cathedral?
Okay, to get a plaque on that wall, you had to be a very significant parishioner and contributor to the cathedral and, of course, to Trinidad and Tobago. So in some instances, there would be the governor's wife or it would just be a parishioner. We also have 3 plaques that date back to remind us of all those who fell in the war. So those are 3 bronze plates that are located on the western side of the northern door. Whereas the other plaques, you have to read them, but there are different inscriptions on them, but they definitely were parishioners that made significant contributions. In the Lady Chapel, you have things like the stained glass windows. And again, the Wainwright family would have made significant contributions, one of which was that stained glass window. Also in the Lady Chapel, you have the Canterbury Cross, because if you remember the Anglican Church, the head of our church is the Archbishop of Canterbury. So, and that chapel was actually consecrated in the name of the first bishop consecrated at Trinity, which was Richard Rolle. So that was originally the Richard Rolle Chapel. Yeah.
I just have a question. One thing that I've always been curious about, when you walk up these steps at Trinity, I think that is the southern, no, not the southern. When you come in the car park, I'm very bad with cardinal points. When you're walking up these stairs, and there's some sort of writing at the top of the church, or some sort of inscription or something like that. What is the significance of that?
All right, so the inscription, I can't tell you exactly what it translates into, but it definitely is a Latin inscription. And that, I don't have all the information on that, but certainly I know it is Latin. Yeah? Yeah.
So we know that outside the cathedral, there's the labyrinth and there's the Garden of Peace. Yes. Could you, when were those added to the cathedral?
Beautiful. So in an attempt to move into the 21st century, the cathedral decided to embark on something that was a little bit more modern and unique. So nowhere else in Trinidad would you find a labyrinth, which is meant for you to do your own personal meditation, in any other church in Trinidad. And that was one of our tasks that we had to go into, as I said, into this 21st century. Similarly, the Garden of Peace, is where we can inter the remains of persons who may have been cremated, where we can remember our loved ones, where we could just sit and enjoy the peacefulness of the Garden of Peace. And that was also done in 2000 as part of our 21st century. Now, we started trying to move into the century from a little before that, when we decided to have the Trinity All Generation Steel Orchestra. And they, of course, have a special spot on the northern side of the cathedral, in the cathedral itself. And they started in the late 1990s. And again, it was the first cathedral to allow our national instrument to be played in service and also at events. Something else that we did was that we allowed the very first organ music competition in the National Music Festival was played actually in our cathedral in Trinity. And again, that was in the late 1900s. We allowed that to happen.
Well, that sounds, I love the Garden of Peace. I have yet to actually try the labyrinth, right? But I have been in the Garden of Peace, and I really, really enjoy that. So I really love those two additions to the cathedral, and it doesn't take away to me from the historical look of the cathedral, I should say. So it really fits nicely.
It does, definitely.
So for me, Kathryn, as somebody who would have toured the cathedral and so forth, so you shared with us this wonderful history and so forth. If you had an opportunity to enhance, add something, etc., yes, we want the cathedral to be back to its original glory. But if you had unlimited funds, what do you think you would add to the cathedral to, I don't know, as you say, take it to the 21st century? What would you do?
Well, I would tell you, one of my little pet projects I'd love to embark on, if I had the money to do so, would be to implement a beautiful gift and information shop. And it would be located just very close to where the labyrinth is, where people could come in and find out whatever they wanted to. Also, you'd be able to offer other things for sale, you know, a bit like Mount St. Benedict has their gift shop. I'd love to do that. And right there, they can also embark on paying for your tours, or at least making donations. That kind of thing I'd love to see happen. You can then offer all our bookmarks and our candles, which all form part of, even for the Garden of Peace, you know, offering some flowers if you want, and even allowing you to have some prayers that you can use in the labyrinth, and how to use the labyrinth for your prayers. I would love to see that take place. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fabulous idea, Kathryn, and I really hope that, you know, in the near future, something like that actually happens, you know. Any other tidbits of the cathedral before we wrap up?
Well, so today the baptismal font sits under the western left gallery loft, but originally that was located right in front of the western door. So as you walked in the western door, the baptismal font was right there. And if you walk up the aisle, you'll notice the tiles are different on the ground, because that's where it was located. And one of the things we always note is that, could you believe at that time, that's where life began in your church? And when you have a funeral, that's where we place the coffin before you depart. So life begins and ends at your western door of the cathedral. So that's very significant. Also, things like the pulpit. Our pulpit was actually meant for the Catholic cathedral, but it came in a little damaged. And we were very fortunate that Mr. De Silva at the time decided to repair it. And he then said, well, okay, here it is for the Anglican Church. So you have that beautiful pulpit, and above it, you see that shell-typed, what's called a sounding board. That was the original microphone. We didn't have microphones back in the days. So when you were talking on the pulpit, your voice would bounce off of the sounding board and actually go to the back of the cathedral. Right. Yes.
Oh, lovely. Do you have any information about the pipe organ and when it was installed and that kind of thing?
So our pipe organ was all a project by Dean Holt, and he particularly wanted that to be a significant part of the cathedral. And when he decided to install it, and I just want to get the date correct for you, he actually felt that he would put it in such a way. Let me just find this here. because that was all part of the extensions that they did back when they were installing the chancel. Let me just get it for you. Right. The organs were actually installed in the early 1900s, and it was Mrs. Holt that collected the monies for it, for both the organ and also the reredos, which are to the back of the altar. And needless to say, Dean Holt would actually give some lessons on how to play the organ. He was very musical, and he, of course, that's why it's called the Dean Holt organ, and there's a plaque on it that says so today.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
and you know those beautiful stained glass windows above the altar? They also are very significant, and they do depict certain things. And so, for instance, the three at the very top, they depict, and just again to make sure I have it correct, they depict the I have all my lovely notes, which I'm going to be sharing with the people who would like to take part in the trivia night on the 29th.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. So they are going to get this lovely handout that I have created for them. All right, let's see. And it is just checking for it. But the ones at the top, one is the Annunciation, another one is Mary Magdalene in the garden, and there's another one it's slipping me. And then below, you would have the three saints, which I think was John, Peter, Paul, I think the other one was. Those are slipping me right now. But yeah, it's all here in the lovely handout. They were asking people, of course, to register for the trivia night. And once they register, you know, they get the handout, and we're going to have this fun exercise with lots of questions. So they're listening to this, of course, you know, they're getting a little bit of it now, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kathryn, I really want to say thank you so much for sharing all that information about the cathedral. For me, I would admit that for a while, the cathedral was just that church in Port of Spain for me. But I think over the year with COVID, you know, doing services with cathedral, it has become more than that for me. And now hearing about the history, it just really adds that much significance in my life. So really and truly, thank you for that. But I just want to ask you one more question. What does the cathedral mean to you?
Because as a very passionate tour guide facilitator and a person who's very much into the history of our country, I was first driven. Of course, I grew up at Bishop's, so therefore, you know, I grew up in the Anglican Church. But I was first driven by the historical element of it. And it sits in such a prominent place in Port of Spain, right next to the old fire station, the public library, the Red House, the Hall of Justice. You have the town hall, the old public library, and of course, Woodford Square, which was once called Brunswick Square. So historically, it is in the most beautiful place for you to be able to talk about. In addition to that history, as you walk in, you feel the spirituality of it. You know, it's like one where you're going back in time, but you just feel a sense of peace and awe. When you look up, you feel as though Christ is there with you. You know, it's just such a warm and beautiful feeling. Back in the 1900s, when I was trying to find my way back into the spiritual aspect of my life, you know, I'd visited all the different churches. I started off at All Save, the one in Kirep, Holy Savior.
Holy Savior, yes.
And they were so welcoming. And then the history got into me, and I said, let me try Trinity. And the people at Trinity were so warm and welcoming that I really enjoyed that. And for me, that is what I say. Trinity means spirituality, friendliness, warmth, and history. The great heritage of Trinidad, the history of Trinidad, is lodged in Trinity Cathedral, dating back from the very early 1800s to this very day, because this is still where the cathedral, where the law term is opened at Trinity Cathedral. So it's still very significant, even though we do not have what we call a religious persuaded country. We're not Anglican or Catholic, but we still have that. It plays a significant part of our life.
Wow, what a fantastic note to end on, Kathryn. Thank you so much for sharing this history. I appreciate it so much. And I know the viewers as well would appreciate what you've shared. And I hope it encourages us as Anglicans to really go and do research, not only on the cathedral, but probably some other churches that we have in our diocese, of historical value, and maybe, who knows, I'm putting it out there, a book of our churches. Does something like that exist? I don't know.
Well, a lot of my information I've gathered not so much from books from the different churches themselves. So like, for instance, people don't even know St. Matthias in Laventil has a great significant history as well. And then there's one in Moruga, and the churches.
I believe St. Mary's and Tacarigua might have some significance as well.
Definitely, because they contributed to the indentured laborers that came in, so yes.
I'm putting that out there. Can we get a book of our churches in the diocese? Can we get a book of that, a history book? So we're putting out your idea about the gift shop at the cathedral and a book of our churches. Right? Thank you. Yes. Thank you so very much, Kathryn. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone, you would have just heard about the rich history of the Holy Trinity Cathedral from Kathryn McConnie. And now I'm going to talk with Dr. Phaedra, Pierre, parishioner at Holy Trinity Cathedral, and she's going to share with us the wonderful activities that are going to take place to celebrate the 190th anniversary of the cathedral. Phaedra, thank you for coming again to Conversations with Anglicans. It's so good to see you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So walk us through. This is a wonderful flyer that was designed to inform us about what's going on. Who designed this wonderful flyer for you?
This was designed by Shanice Janai Branch, one of our parishioners who is in charge of our communications ministry. So she's very good at creating these things, and then usually she is the one who will decide exactly how we're going to get it out and that kind of stuff. She's in charge of our social media, and so she's a good girl.
Yes, this is actually very eye-catching. So I'm using it as my background for our interview.
Okay.
So just share with us, in what ways can we, as the wider parish, the parish of Holy Trinity and Trinity Cathedral, and those of us, who kind of insert ourselves into Trinity business, how can we celebrate along with the cathedral?
Well, the thing about it is, I always say, remember, Trinity is the cathedral. The cathedral is the mother church of the diocese. So everybody really belongs to the cathedral.
Yes.
Just that you all don't live by us. You might have your own house, but you still belong to the cathedral. So you're still part of the cathedral community and the cathedral parish. Every Anglican in Trinidad and Tobago and further afield even is a member of the cathedral. So don't feel you're outside or you're a visitor, anything like that. And right now, our dean is in a mode where, anybody who comes should take in, welcome, big open arms. Please come and, participate and, be part of the family. So you're not outside. So it's just how are we all going to celebrate together?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so let me put a little precursor up before the actual week of events, because what happens is that we turn 198 on the 25th of May, and then Trinity Sunday is the 30th of May. So we have a number of activities for that entire week. But before we get to that, let's just talk about the general sorts of things. So usually for our patronal festival, for our anniversary or a birthday, whichever way you want to look at it, we ask people to contribute towards the cathedral in multiples of our numbers. So this year we're 198. So we are asking individuals to contribute $198. And this year, of course, since we are about to embark on our restoration efforts, we are encouraging people to donate towards the restoration fund. So adults, individuals, $198. We don't leave anybody out. So youth, children can donate $19.80.
Oh, nice.
And then on a bigger basis, families, organizations, groups, whoever, 1,980. So it's all multiples of the 198. And that's general, and we do that every year. Every year, you know, last year we were 197. We asked people to do the 197. So this year we only 198. Then we are also trying to organize, all the details are not confirmed yet, but we also want to do 198 hampers. Last year, of course, with COVID and with partnering with the government and the Ministry of Social Development, we were able to distribute a number of hampers and vouchers based on their, you know, their program of assistance to those who were affected by COVID. So we are planning on extending that and developing hampers at the cost of $198. And we're trying to get 198 hampers to be able to distribute to charitable causes. So if anybody would like to pledge 1 hamper, 2 hampers, 3 hampers, you know, we will take that in our social outreach drive. So we always feel that it's important to have a social outreach aspect in our celebration. So that is as far as the social outreach is concerned. And 9th.
Nice.
So let's talk about the week of celebrations now. Okay. So our anniversary is the 25th, but on the 24th, we're having some pre-birthday conversations. Of course, we are Trinity Cathedral, but there are lots of Trinities and Trinity Cathedrals all over the world. And we are making connections with those. We have worked in the past with people like Trinity Wall Street. There's a Trinidadian who is in charge of Trinity Cathedral in Trenton, New Jersey. So we are making connections with Trinities across the world. And we want to have conversations with Trinities, between Trinities. That would be the Monday evening, the 24th. During our usual Bible study time, which we usually do on Zoom. So, you know, that is kind of to kickstart even previous to the birthday itself. So, day 1 of the birthday, May the 25th. Now, I don't know how many people are aware, but the 25th of every month is supposed to be a diocesan day of prayer.
Yep.
Everybody is supposed to be praying that day. And I mean, you don't have to pray all day, but you're supposed to devote, everybody is supposed to devote a certain amount of time. And you could decide if it's an hour. Some people can't even manage an hour. So 15 minutes or whatever to pray. Pray for the diocese, pray for the church, and pray for whatever other causes you would like to. So to kick off our birthday, we are observing that day of prayer. And we will be praying hourly from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again on Zoom. So, but it won't be long. It will be like 10 minutes every hour on the hour, praying, and really and truly, the theme will be praise, because obviously we had to celebrate, right? It's our birthday. So every hour we will be doing some prayer straight through from 8 a.m. from 6 a.m. At 6 p.m. we will have worship. Now, we're not sure, again, according to how things go, if it will be a Eucharist or if it will be evensong or evening prayer. But we'll have a form of worship in the evening at 6 o'clock, and that will be followed at 7 p.m. by an online praise party. last year was the first time we tried the online praise party, and it was really, I was so pleasantly surprised.
Yes, it was really nice.
Yeah, people tuned in from all over, young and old. We had some of our young parishioners there. We had one of our oldest parishioners. I think she was 94 at the time. She recently passed, but yeah, she didn't make it to this anniversary.
This one, yeah.
But so we had a range of ages, and we had people from all over. North, south, east. Excuse me, north, south, east, and west, and outside of the country as well. And it was so pleasantly funny that, okay, it was supposed to be a praise party, so we had all kind of music lined up to play for the praise party. And then by the time people started to jump in with their testimonies about their experiences at Trinity, with Trinity, and all of that, we ran out of time for the music, and we were going from, I think it was about 7 until almost 9 o'clock. People just testifying, thanking the Lord, talking about their memories, coming through Trinity, you know, some people talking about their weddings and their baptisms and their whatever at Trinity and all of that. So the online praise party was really, really nice last year. So again, I hope I'm inviting everybody to come and join, jump in. Also kicking off on that evening will be our daily praying of the Rosary, the Anglican Rosary. Now, again, some people aren't aware that Anglicans also have prayer beads, just like the Catholic Rosary. I mean, similar to the Catholic Rosary, but not the Catholic Rosary.
Yeah.
Our beads, the Rosary has 33 beads. And there's no such thing as coincidence. We know that, right? 33 multiplied by the 6 days of celebrations between Tuesday and Sunday brings us up to what number? Guess.
I don't know, 198 people.
Right. So if we pray our rosary every day,
yes,
we would have said 198 prayers between the birthday and the feast day. So every day we will be praying that Anglican rosary at different times of the day. We decided to do it at different times because we said, if, for instance, we stick to one time, there are some people that never make it out at that time. So I tell people, I am a late night person, so I hardly ever, if ever, catch morning prayer. So if by any chance we had decided that we would only do it at morning prayer every day, I would miss out. I would just have to do it on my own.
Right.
So we'll do it at various times, sometimes morning prayer, sometimes noonday, sometimes evening prayer, sometimes compline. So we're praying our Anglican Rosary. If you are not familiar with the Anglican Rosary, lots of information on YouTube. You know, you can YouTube and Google anything these days. And it will not only give you the factual information, but YouTube, of course, will also give you people who are praying the Rosary. So that you will have a model of what it looks like and how it sounds and how long it takes and that kind of stuff. The interesting thing about the Anglican Rosary is that it is very flexible. So there are lots of different versions of the Rosary, some very short, some a little bit longer, but it's all based on our scriptures. So the things that are familiar to us as Anglicans, those are the verses that we use as we pray the beads. So it will be daily doing the Anglican Rosary from the Tuesday, the 25th, to the feast day, which is the 30th. So the Wednesday, usually a part of our regular program is Know Your Faith. Wednesday evenings, we usually have Know Your Faith. And for that Wednesday in particular, the theme is going to be the Trinity and me. And we will have a special guest speaker, again, coming to us through Zoom, Reverend Canon Courtwright Davis. He is a Trinidadian originally, professor of theology at Howard University School of Divinity. very, very effective kind of speaker. I don't know if you remember, if you were involved, the last time we had Anglicanism Reloaded in the Savannah, he was the keynote speaker. Fantastic, fantastic. They think, you know, you don't remember every sermon, but guess what? I remember parts of his sermon. I remember him saying we need as a church to bring the babies and bring the boys and bring the Bibles. And he built his whole sermon around that. So he is a very effective preacher, and he will be coming to talk to us about the Trinity and me. I don't know how he will spin it exactly, but that's the theme for the day. So that will be the Wednesday. On the Thursday, again, part of our usual programming at the cathedral, Thursday is our Journey of Sacred Music at 6 p.m. on our Facebook page. The Journey of Sacred Music is an effort between our cathedral organist, Rico Cummings, and one of our parishioners who is a pianist, Kristen Morrill. And every Thursday afternoon, they open up the cathedral for music. And you can tune in any Thursday, but of course that Thursday we're doing a special edition which will focus on the Trinity, which will focus on special hymns and that kind of stuff during that Journey of Sacred Music. So Rico and Kristen will be putting together a special program for that afternoon. Then on the Friday, we're going to have a movie night. And we're going to, on Zoom, look at Pay It Forward. It's not a new movie, but is one that I think people have seen, and that is an interesting movie, and has a lot to do with kindness and community. And that's what we're all about, especially during these celebrations, building community, sharing love and kindness with each other. So we will look at Pay It Forward. We will see if at the end of the movie anybody has any comments and that kind of stuff to make. But it's really, you know, end of the week, sit down, relax with your family, pop some popcorn, have some drinks, all socially distanced and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the 28th of May, the Friday night.
Yes.
And then the Saturday, as I said, is the finale of the walk. We're going to be calculating at 12 o'clock. We'll be calculating who made it to the 19.8 kilometers, or who was a little short, who came in first, all of those kinds of details. We'll be putting that together on the 29th at midday. And then the evening of the 29th is when we will have the trivia. So I don't know if Kathryn, when she spoke about the history of the cathedral and all of that, talked about the trivia game. Right, so we're going to have a trivia game. It will be on Zoom, and she will organize whatever program. I left all of that in her hands, but she's very excited about it. When we had originally thrown it out to our worship committee, one of the ladies asked about a study guide, because you don't want to go into trivia and then you realize you don't know nothing, right?
Right.
So Kathryn was very good about producing a little study guide for us, which has a lot of information in there on the cathedral. So we're asking people to register. So you sign up at, you send an email to theholytrinitycom, C-O-M-M, theholytrinitycom @gmail.com, starting on May the 23rd. So when you send an email to there saying that you're interested in the trivia, we will send you the little booklet that has all of the information. And then on the night of the 29th, you will sign in and we'll see what happens with the trivia. Who wins?
So much fun.
Yeah, it should be. And, you know, she was even talking about a Jeopardy style thing. I'm not sure exactly if that is going to happen.
There's so many options to do that. So it will be fun.
Yeah. So we will round off the week. Our grand finale is on Trinity Sunday, which is May the 30th. We have Eucharist that morning, and then we will follow that by tea with the and our preacher, let me just mention, our preacher for that morning will be our newly minted priest, Father Michael Lawrence, one of the, latest, most recently ordained priests. So for those, again, who have not heard him preach before, because he's been in Tobago, he's been posted in Tobago, so maybe people might not be totally familiar with him, but again, you can tune in and you will hear his wonderful preaching, because he is really a good preacher. I heard him for the caravan, and he was wonderful. So that will be our preacher for Eucharist on May the 30th. And after the Eucharist, we're having what in some foreign circles might be called a coffee hour. But seeing that our dean doesn't drink coffee.
I know, she's a tea person, any time of the day.
Yes, all times of the day. She's a tea person. So we will be doing tea with the dean after service. So that will probably be around 10 o'clock. We will play it by ear according to how the service goes. And of course, some of that is going to be determined by if things are opened up and we are back in church, or if we are still totally online. That might affect the timing a little bit. But we're going to be doing tea with the dean, so we'll have a little chat. Now, under ideal circumstances, if people behave themselves and our numbers go down, and we are able to do things in person, there will actually be a select few who will be invited to physically be there to have tea with the dean. And well, if Father Lawrence comes over, with Father Lawrence. If not, it will be all online. But again, a lot of that is dependent on how things go over the next couple of weeks with the numbers. So that's our week of celebrations. 198 years is not a little bit. And we are heading into our restoration process, as I said, which is supposed to start next couple months, and heading towards our bicentennial next 2 years. So kind of, building things up as we get to 200.
Well, I can't wait to see how you all will celebrate 200 years if 198 is just so chock full of so many different activities that caters to so many different age groups, interests. It really is a well-organized week or month, shall I say. So congratulations to the team that would have organized these events, So there's so many things that I could see that I could participate in.
Good.
It really is fantastic.
As you mentioned, the team is really not a little team, Yes, the brainstorming might have been with a small group, but what has happened is that different groups in the parish, different committees and that kind of stuff have kind of adopted different aspects of the celebration. So it's really, so for instance, the tea with the dean, when I spoke with the Mothers Union president, she was like, yes, we love that. We would love to do that. So they are organizing whatever needs to be organized for that. Kathryn is a member of our reconciliation committee. So, the reconciliation committee is involved that way with her, with the trivia and with the movie night as well. And the worship committee in the various ways that we are going to be worshiping for the week and that kind of stuff. So, we've tried to and we've got good response from various committees in taking a little piece of the celebration. Yeah.
That seems to be, a definition of community, working together to ensure that, this whole project is a success. So I'm really thank you so very much, Phaedra, and thank you everyone for watching Conversation with Anglicans. Have a great afternoon and everyone be safe. Bye.
Bye.